Welcome to what I hope will be the first of many regular worldwide forums where we talk about solar cooking, the latest in solar cooking news, and with the most dedicated solar cooking proponents around the world. And I'm really pleased to have Tom Sponheim on today to talk about the solar cooking wiki and some other thoughts he might have on how people can network about solar cooking and so forth. And the first question I have is the segue between when you had the archive, which is more you're loading stuff up, if I understand right, onto the internet, and then moving to the wiki where it could be more interactive, maybe a little easier to search and so forth. Start with that, I guess. What brought you to the point where you said, I got to get this on a wiki?
Well, I had created the first website using Front Page back in like 1994 or something like that. And at that point, everything had to sort of go through me in order to get something up on the wiki. It basically had to be sent to me, and then I had to find the time to put it up. And actually, I had created the wiki because there was another person who was going to put the stuff on the web, and he never did it. So I just decided, oh, how does this HTML stuff work? Mm-hmm. So figured it out and got it up there. And then when I went to Granada, Spain for the conference in 2005, I had just learned about Wikipedia at that point, or I had known about it for a while, I guess. But I thought, wouldn't it be great if people could put their own information up on the wiki? So I gave a little talk at the conference, and I brought up the idea of creating parts of the Solar Cooking Archive, was what the site was called before it was a wiki, as a wiki-based site. And when I got home, I found, what was it called way back when? It's called Fandom now. It was called Wikia, I think. And I created basically just a few various pages on this that I linked to from the original site that was non-wiki. And I made it so people could just click on a link from the site and go to the wiki, and then could add things themselves or make changes themselves. And slowly but surely, pretty soon it got to be that just about every link on the Solar Cooking Archive, the non-wiki site, pointed to a page on the wiki. So I thought, boy, why don't we just make a front page on the wiki and then redirect solarcooking.org, which was the location of the original site, so that it went to the wiki. And those of you, just in case you want to know, if you want to direct somebody to the wiki, just tell them to go to solarcooking.org. And if you want them to go to an individual article on the wiki, you can say solarcooking.org/cookit or solarcooking.org/Portugal. And what I did is some clever programming, it's not that clever, in the background, where I automatically see that somebody's trying to go to a page that doesn't exist. And they're thinking, oh, well, that page didn't exist on the original site, so I'll redirect them to that page on the wiki. So it's kind of easy to tell somebody on the phone or something, just go to solarcooking.org drying, if you want to know about food drying. And there's thousands of redirects on the wiki, so that, the drying article, if you type drying, it automatically goes to the solar food drying article. So just about anything you could think of to search for, you'll probably end up redirecting to the exact page you want, just like Wikipedia does the same thing. So that's how it became a wiki. I guess that's the answer to your question.
Sure. No, it is. And the sidebar is Wikipedia itself. Once I looked up solar cooking, and it was so incredibly not satisfying because it was nothing compared to what you've assembled. I mean, there's just no comparison. I mean, it's like, it's not even Cliff's Notes. Yeah, you remember Cliff's Notes in college?
Oh, yeah. Spark Notes, young people would call it now.
Yeah, physics for dummies, English for dummies, Shakespeare for dummies. That was
Wikipedia is, you don't see it if you just use Wikipedia to get information, but if you look behind the scenes by going on to view the edits of the page, you'll see there's, depending on the article and how controversial it is, there's a battle going on in the background. And there's certain people that decide oh, you didn't do this right, you can't say this. This information is coming from somebody that's, like, I can't edit this, solar, the Solar Cookers International article on the wiki because they know I'm related to Solar Cookers International, at least I was. Maybe now I could
Mhm.
edit it, but they don't allow edits by people that are related to the organization, or there are people up there who don't. And if you try to link to something, somebody will go in and change it. And if you try to put information up there that was copied from somewhere else on the web, they'll come on and they'll see, oh, this is plagiarism. You copied this from someplace else. So it's really a mess to try to edit on Wikipedia. I think it's fantastic. In fact, I've been working on a project trying to get the offline Wikipedia out in the world to people. It fits on a thumb drive. It fits on a thumb drive this size.
Oh, wow, yeah.
In fact, all of Wikipedia, all 6 million articles plus the images, fit. You could fit this plus a lot more. But anyway, so Wikipedia is great, but in order to actually make it something that was you could do without, somebody slapping your hand with a ruler every time you made an edit, which happened to me every single time on Wikipedia, we did it on our own wiki. And I
Sure,
remember
sure.
when we asked Wikia, which is now Fandom, if we could have our own wiki that was solarcooking.fandom.com, and they thought, oh, why don't you just use some other cooking wiki or something like that that already exists? And I thought, no, that's not what we want.
Yeah. Well, I for one, I think it's a good move to have its own separate thing. And perhaps on Wikipedia, maybe early on, there could be some point saying, hey, you really want to know more, go here, say it in a way that it won't get clobbered.
Yeah, but you can't do that
Oh,
because
you
it's an
can't do that?
external link. You have to put that at the end.
Uh,
There are external links, but I check every once in a while to make sure it's actually there
okay,
still.
sure. Well,
It's kind of, yeah.
yeah. One other big question is if someone wants to contribute to it, can they go right there and just plug in something? Or is that something that have to go through you and Paul, or how does that work?
No, thank you. That's a really good question. This is the word. My frustration after turning it into a wiki was people still have not, hundreds of people have, but not in the amount I would like. Basically, you literally go to a page, for example, say it's on solar pots or something, and you go to that page and you came up with a clever idea of using 2 plastic bags on the pot instead of 1. And you found that if you're doing a side-by-side test, it improved your thing, your cooking by 10% or something. You go to that article and there's a link at the top that says edit. You don't have to create an account. You don't have to log in. You don't have to do anything. You just create the edit link and it becomes like Word, like a Word. It's an editor on the screen that you can edit. So you just go to the part of the page. I mean, ideally, you'd go to a part of the page where it fits and you say, I tried putting 2 bags around it and I got 10% better cooking. And then you click save. That's what you have to do. Now, what happens is there's a page that we go to regularly that shows us any edits that have happened on the wiki. And those edits can either be from people that have accounts. And by the way, if you create an account for yourself, then you'll have the complete experience with no ads at all. Because Fandom actually gave us the ability to have free, like they took us and the Khan Academy and a few other sites, and they gave us the ability to have the free wiki with no ads because they liked our, what we were dedicated to doing. So if you create an account, which is really simple, it's basically username, password, and then go to the email and accept that you're joining this wiki. That's all you have to do. And if you're logged in, you get no ads at all. Anyway, so we see a page that shows all the edits. And if we see that somebody with some IP address edited the solar cooking pot, whatever page, then there's a little link there that says diff, D-I-F-F, like what's the difference between the page before you edited and the page after you edited it. So we just click that and it'll show us the page and it'll show us the sentence that you put in. if we think it's in the right place and it's good, then we just ignore it. And, you know, in our minds, thank you for the edit. But if it needs to be moved or something, we move it. So you don't have to worry about formatting. You don't have to worry about placement. You don't have to worry about anything, because Solar Cookers International is paying Paul Hedrick to deal with the wiki at all times. That's his job. And alternately, of course, it'd be great if people do it themselves, but learning to put in photos and links to other sites and other documents and things like that, or uploading PDFs and all that. It's not that hard, but every time we try to create a video showing how to do it, they change how you do it. And then pretty soon you can't do it anymore. So in a case like that, you just write to paul@solarcookers.org. And you just send him anything you want. You say, Paul, I've got this thing I think you should put on. You just send it to him. He'll take care of it. Now, let me just mention, you could also have put that on Facebook. But you've probably all had the experience of having seen something on Facebook and then telling somebody about it, and they say, oh, I'd like to see that. And you go back and try to find it. You know, you can search on Facebook groups and pages, but generally it's pretty hard to find stuff because it kind of all flows by. And then if somebody responds to something that happened 3 weeks ago, it goes to the top of the page. It's great. It's a great place to share information at the time and get people to respond to it. Probably better than the wiki, but in order to be a knowledge base of something that will then exist forever for everybody to see, then you would go to the wiki or send it to Paul, either one. And let me just mention the wiki gets about 500,000 page views per year. And if you create yourself a website and you try to see how many people go to your website, you're talking 1 or 2 a week. You know, it's really hard to get traffic on the web when there's billions of pages. So if there's 2 places I would say you're going to get some viewers for your information. One is on Facebook, the ones who happen to see it, but most people come on probably infrequently and will miss most of it, or on the wiki, and it'll be there for all time, hopefully.
Yes. Well, and the searching on the Facebook, I agree. It's we did find out a couple of years ago, I think Dave Oxford in England and I were both frustrated not finding stuff. But we did find that if you did search for one term, it would go back to the very beginning, but you'd have to page through, you know, say put in the word tracker for solar trackers.
Right.
If it was the one that someone made in 2017, you're gonna have to page through 15, 16 pages, whereas more than likely it is already on the wiki in
That's
on
right.
the topic of trackers. So
And we've already decided that certain things were more important than others and decided which ones we thought were worth posting. And, you know, we try to be very open-minded, but, you know, there's some certain amount of judgment there.
people can contribute, they can contribute directly. I think it's sage advice to say, find the topic you're talking about first and be able to add to that. That way people find it in one spot rather than finding 2 or 3 or 10 or whatever. So that's
That
good.
brings up a point. Let me just mention a point.
Sure.
Sometimes people have written to us and say we can't find some page on whatever topic, and I would wrote back and said, have you tried searching? And so, you know, there's 2 ways to get to things. You can have an index where you try to lead people down a path, down a tree to find the information they're looking for. And of course, if you put every possible topic at the top level, it's more likely that they're going to find their topic, but there's so many topics that it's going to be overwhelming. So what you try to do is you try to narrow it down into bigger boxes that then you go further down and you find the smaller items. But then you end up deciding, well, you have to guess which topic your page was in, you know, whatever information you're looking for, which upper topic would it have been in? So it's a real hassle. So you will find on the top page of the wiki, and also there's top navigation. There's little links at the top you can click that have drop-down navigation menus that allow you to move around the wiki that way. But the real way I think you should think of it as Wikipedia. Like, you want to find an article on George Washington, do you go to Wikipedia and try to find a link to American presidents? No, you just type George Washington and it goes directly to the page called George Washington. That's the other thing about the wiki. The wiki goes to, I think the default is that it goes to a search with the most important page at the top. For us, those of us who have accounts, we can make a setting so that when you just type George Washington, it goes straight to the George Washington article. I'm not sure exactly what it is for people that don't have an account. I'll have to check that out. But and anyway, what I'm trying to say is, instead of trying to find your way through the navigation links that we've created, just go ahead and find yours, just search for it.
Sure. And Paul, and you still do it too, where you find something, you throw it up there. If it's, for instance, on the World Network and so forth. I should mention there's kind of an organic connection to the Facebook page, the Solar Cookers World Network, which
That's
is one
right.
of about maybe a dozen solar cooking Facebook groups, but certainly the most active, the most subscribed to right now. And I try to make sure there's cross-pollination amongst all of them.
Right.
But starting with the World Network, because it is the most active, and I think the most active of solar cookers, solar cooks, designers, promoters, and so forth, have logged into it eventually. And I'm trying to get more on with this forum. So
Yeah.
in fact, and again, kudos to the wiki and you and Paul. A lot of the people that I'm going to be connecting with, they maybe have an old reference. It might be from 05, going back, way back 20 years or more. And I hope to reconnect them, because when I do look them up online, they are still at least active in maybe environmental causes, if not directly solar cooking. And if they are still promoting solar cooking somewhere, I would encourage, I'll be encouraging them to update their reference. And if nothing else, I'll try to do it myself or send it your way, or your and Paul's way. So again, the kind of the cross-pollination and making sure if the first place they go to doesn't have it, that's something that should be corrected, maybe a gap. But are there any gaps right now on the wiki that you'd like to see people filled?
Yeah, it's a good question. A definite something that I've always dreamed about having, and we've had it a little bit here and there, is like a subject matter expert for each country. Especially the most important countries, like India, Pakistan, places like that. So, if there's a person out there who would like to take charge of finding more information and linking together all the people, we put on all the information that we can find about a certain country. If we see a news article about something happening in Portugal on solar cooking, we automatically go to the news section of the Portugal page, and we put that news article in there with a link to the article. So if somebody in Portugal would like to take on the task of checking the news in Portugal, if you go to the Portuguese page, you probably have 10 NGOs listed that have something to do with solar cooking. And to go and look regularly at their sites to find out what their news is, and then transfer the news, at least, copy and paste it over to the wiki. That's more than one person can do, since we do have 142 countries or something. You were talking about finding people that used to be, we knew that they were working on solar cooking in years past, but aren't sure they still are. One thing we do every year is we go back 2 years and we check out every NGO and every individual and every manufacturer to see if they're still active. And there's categories at the top of any wiki page. There's categories. So if I was to go to Solar Cookers International, it'll say NGOs, USA, verified active 2023. So you'll be able to see who's verified active on any of the pages. And also, there's the history of the page will show you the edits that have been made to the page, but sometimes those edits are very small, little spelling corrections and stuff like that. But whenever something has been added to the page, we mark it with a image that says new next to it, a little yellow new, and that stays there for about 1.5 to 2 months. And then it automatically disappears. So you can see that what's new on a page. So if you go back to the Portugal page, one thing I've hated about websites is you don't know what's new. And you go back there and you have to search through everything. So one thing is, if you were on the Portugal page, you could look down at any part of the page and you'll see a little yellow new thing next to anything that's new. Also at the top of the page, it'll say when it was last edited. And that's not done automatically. That's done by the editors. So whenever we add something that's substantial, then we change that date. But if we just make a spelling check or something, we don't. Also, if you go to the top page of the site, you'll see the top news stories listed. And there's like 3 tabs at the top. One says news, and one says events, and one says new content. So if you click on events, you'll get all the events happening in every country. And if you click on new content, you'll get everything that's been added to the wiki. And it'll be listed by, it'll say Haiti, and then it'll be some text and a link that links off someplace. And in a month, we may have 30 new things or 40 new things added to the site. So that way you could come to the site, you could see what's been added, you can see what topic that has been added for. And then if you go to any page on the site, you'll see what's been added also.
Sure.
Let me also mention the site is browsable in like 42 different languages. So at the top of every page, there's the language names. You just click that. You can, if you go to the Portugal page and you click Portuguese, you'll see the page in Portuguese. And then there's a link to Console Food 2023, the new conference. When you click that, that page will also be translated into Portuguese. So you can actually just go through the site from one page to the next. It all stays in Portuguese. And you can do that in any other language, any of the other languages. And let me say, if you want to send somebody a link to the site in Portuguese, you send them to solarcooking.org/pt. And
Yes.
it'll automatically send them to the translated top page. And you send them to solarcooking.org/hi, it sends them to the Hindi page, the Hindi version of the site.
Sure. Is there a directory with those abbreviations, or can they put in Hindi, or?
There isn't a directory that I have created, but how about we'll create one?
Sure.
It's basically these are international language codes. So EN is English and ES is Spanish, DE is German.
Oh, right.
But most people wouldn't guess that German is DE probably because they don't know it. They wouldn't think of Deutsch. But any of those international symbols, I'll grab some like that and put it in there.
Just a couple other things. What are you up to now? You are still deep into solar cooking. No one's going to let you stray, right?
Right. I'm no longer working with Solar Cookers International, but I'm working with Solar Household Energy, which is back in Washington, D.C. And I'm working with them on a project. During the beginning of COVID, I realized that a lot of people in the slums of Nairobi were locked down. And these are day laborers who basically the only way they have money to eat for that day is that they go out and find some job, or not sure what they do, collect bottles, to turn them in for the deposit. I don't know, but they were basically locked down and really no way to make money. So what I did is I contacted one of my solar cooking contacts there, Samuel Odiambo, and I asked him to give, I sent him $100 because, our government was sending us money for COVID, like $1,200 here, $1,000 there. And I thought, boy, some other people could certainly use that money more than I could. So I told him to please buy $10 of food for 8 families, and then you can keep 20% for yourself, the $20. And please send me a photo of each of these families with their food, since I really didn't know Samuel that well at the time. And then we started adding more people. And as the government sent more money, I finally one day said, why don't we just adopt 100 families? And we ended up calling it the 100 Families Project. And through the modern technology, friends and family would send money to me. I would then PayPal the money to Samuel. Then Samuel would send the money from his phone to their phones, because in Nairobi or in Kenya, everybody uses this M-Pesa digital currency to buy everything. So originally we started giving $10 every 2 weeks to each of the 100 families. And they would send pictures of themselves back showing the food that they bought, which is kind of fun because, I mean, it started off as a way to verify that things were really happening the way that we thought, and also a way to share with our donors. They could see actually the result of their money. You know, I'd often said, or at times had said, you know, if I knew that my money really got to the people, I would, I'd be happy to give some money, but I don't want to buy a printer ink for some office someplace. I mean, if you think about it in real terms, there needs to be a supporting organization too to do things, but I don't know, for some reason I wanted to do things directly. So the way we worked it out now is we've made now, tomorrow was the 72nd transfer that we've made to these people.
Oh.
And in the meantime, Solar Household Energy adopted this as a project. So people are able to donate to Solar Household Energy, and then it's a tax deductible donation. And what we do now is we give, depending on the family size, we give either $2, $3, $4, or $5 to the family every 2 weeks. And they send back the photos. And then the photos are then placed onto OneDrive, and a folder in OneDrive. There's a folder for each transfer. And anybody that wants to see all this, it's 100fams.org, 100fams.org. And you can see, it's really kind of interesting because you see all the different families. You get to see what it's like inside of the rooms that they live in, and you get to see their families and their children and the food that they eat. And at the same time, what we did is we created we have a building that's rented. It's $90 a month to rent a building there. It's a small building, you know, it's like a big room. And we've got a computer lab in there with 5 computers and a printer and internet access. And we've got 5 sewing machines and a sewing machine workshop. And we have classes in computers and classes in sewing, and the women can make their school uniforms for their children there. And every 2 weeks when we hand out the money, people come together and clean the streets. They'll pick an area and they clean up all the garbage in the streets. We have a chess club where the kids are having chess tournaments. We've provided a alcohol stove. It's called a cocoa stove. There's a nonprofit there that has vending machines where you can just take your little canister, connect it up to it, type in a code where you've paid on your phone, and it fills it with however much alcohol you've bought. You come and you attach it to your 2-burner alcohol stove, and you can then cook inside with no problems. They were cooking with charcoal indoors. And then we also got 2-liter thermoses for everybody, stainless steel thermoses that allow them to heat water once a day and not have to heat it other times. And I'm sorry I'm going on, but we helped about 50 of the families start self-sustaining businesses. So a lot of them now are self-sufficient. And we've paid for 2 kids have fallen into cooking fires. We've paid for the hospital bills, and we've had 2 cancer patients and 2 deaths. And that's just some of what we've been doing in this project. And the other thing I mentioned earlier is I've been working on this, putting Wikipedia on little thumb drives. And I've got a collection of books and also Wikipedia. And there's like Apropedia also fits on here, plus Low Tech Magazine, plus you name it. I'm looking for good candidates for mailing thumb drives to people in other countries places where people don't have web access and they'd like to access Wikipedia. I mean, if you look at an article on Wikipedia, like you look up mitochondria, whatever, you will see it's almost like a book. And all that stuff is on this. You could study just about anything you wanted to just with this Wikipedia availability. Another nice thing about it is you take this thumb drive, you plug it into any computer with no web access that's on a wireless network, and any other device that's on that network can also access everything that's on this. It's like a little web server is on here. And so when you when you plug this in, you run a program that's on it. That's the Wikipedia program. It's really called KeyWix. Then you say, I'd like to run the server, and it gives you a link, and then you go on your phone, with that link, you see Wikipedia, whether or not you're connected to the internet. So this way they could just share this with their entire network without paying for any more data.
Sure.
So I'm looking for that. So if anybody writes to me and tells me a little bit about why they think they would be a good candidate for one of these drives, then I'll consider mailing one.
And you're okay sharing your email address here?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just tomsponheim@outlook.com.
Okay. And we'll make sure to put that under, we'll add that, since I'll be able to edit this later. It's prominent. That's great. Well, and what you mentioned about the alcohol and so forth, I think it illustrates how a lot of the people I've spoken to, they've definitely gone beyond saying, well, I'm just going to get a cooker somewhere. I want to make sure they're integrating it with the retained heat, with the hay baskets.
Exactly.
And using a rocket stove when it is, the rainy season, and you do have, if you have the wood stored up, at least you're not going to, like I like to tell people, the solar cooker, when the sun is shining, halts deforestation in its tracks right now. The rocket stove slows it way down. So, and if you don't have the sun and you got to cook, well, the rocket stove, it's not evil. It's the best solution when the sun is not shining, probably, right? And biomass and all sorts of other things. So
alcohol is, let me just interrupt for a second. Alcohol is a fantastic fuel, since it can be created from crop waste. It can be created from all sorts of different things. It's a little bit of a conundrum making it happen, but it turns out that, like, I was reading the Model T Ford, when they first came out with the Ford, it burned either alcohol or gasoline. There was a switch because the farmers every farmer made their own alcohol to run their machinery. And so they would then just make their own fuel for their car, for their tractors. So it's a wonderful fuel. In fact, I don't think I know enough to know for sure, but I just wonder if electrifying everything is for sure the way to go, or whether we should be going more towards fuels like alcohol fuel, where basically you can refuel in 5 minutes, just like you do with gasoline. So anyway, that's another story.
Sure.
But alcohol as a fuel for cooking also works well, and it's much less polluting than other kinds of fuels.
Well, it's last question. What would be the first steps if someone that logs in to attend the forum, maybe they're not that deep into solar cooking, but we're going to have attendees from around the world. What would be a first step someone should take to promote specifically solar cooking, or even a deeper, broader dive such as you've done?
I would, for sure, the first step is to build yourself a couple of solar cookers of various kinds. A panel cooker for sure. That could be, an hour and a half. You could have a panel cooker. Another is possibly build yourself a box cooker. They're a little bit out of style these days, but I kind of think they're skipped over, and they're made from cardboard boxes is the simplest way. That's how I learned. And so first of all, get yourself a couple cookers and then become experienced in cooking in them. You'll definitely develop a feel over time for how things work and when they don't work. And pretty soon you'll know, I can't cook today, it's too late, or I'm going to have to cut the vegetables up really small because I'm starting at 2 p.m. Remember, Bob Metcalf's adage was, put your food on early and don't worry about overcooking.
Right.
So things like that, you learn to have a feeling. So also, you're not a hypocrite. You're using something that you're trying to get other people to use.
Sure.
And don't rely, like you mentioned, don't think you can rely completely on solar cooking. Since what do? We wake up in the morning and turn on the stove with some water to make coffee or something, the gas or electric stove. So that's same with other people. They're going to want to have things to eat and drink that are hot at other times when it's not convenient. So learn about the other integrated solar cooking as another thing. The integrated cooking method, there's a good article on that on the wiki. It's ICM. So use solarcooking.org/ICM and you get the article. So I would say learn yourself, get experienced with it, learn about other technologies that go along with it, heat retention cooking. If you can cook things for 20 or 30 minutes and then put them in a heat retention box, which is basically just could be a box full of hay or pillows or whatever, and it continues cooking, that saving energy is always easier than creating energy or harnessing energy. Solar cooking is harnessing energy, but that's going to be more complicated than saving energy. So always start with the simplest first. You may even consider starting, if you're trying to bring something like this into a community someplace, you might consider heat retention cooking first. And then once they see, wow, we never thought of that. How could we have missed that? And then they might be more open for something like solar cooking, which most people have never thought of.
Sure. And I'll cap off what the part of the earlier question is, if they want to go into it further, where they want to help overseas, they maybe want to start an organization. There's got to be over 100, right, on the wiki that there are models.
Yes.
That they could contact them, contact the one that seems to be doing it the way they would feel most comfortable with, I suppose.
Or go to your country page,
Yeah.
Whatever the country is, and find the NGOs. They're all listed there. Each down at the bottom of every page will be contacts, and they'll show all the individuals, manufacturers, and NGOs that are working in solar cooking in your country. And then just go visit the websites. A lot of them have Facebook pages. They're also listed on those pages. And go there and start interacting with those people, and don't try to reinvent the wheel yourself. Because one thing I've learned, what's a great idea in principle isn't always so great in practice. I mean, it may still be great in practice, but people, if you invent a better mousetrap, they don't beat a path to your door. Maybe with mousetraps, but not with something that changes something as fundamental as a cooking method.
Sure.
So be prepared for long-term support and education and follow up to make things, to actually get over the hump.
I'm gathering the experience now that I'm networking more with people across the country, that there are people within countries that don't know there are already other groups working.
Exactly.
And so that's one hope with the forum, is to say, if nothing else, maybe emails, networking that way, virtually.
Right. And send any questions to paul@solarcookers.org, and he'll also answer your questions too.
Sure.
So he'll also point you to information that you may not be able to find yourself.
Yeah. Great. And I will be definitely following up with Paul too, so we get the whole spectrum here going on. He has been involved promoting it, and has put together that foldable box cooker. Now you had a hand in that too, right? Did I remember that?
I had a foldable box cooker, and then Paul had a sort of a panel cooker.
Okay.
Yeah, the collapsible box cooker, that was something that I kind of came up with in the 90s that got real excited about. And it's kind of clever. Maybe you could, if you just type the word collapsible, search for collapsible in the wiki, and you'll find it. It's kind of very clever. Not that I think some people have made them, but box cookers kind of fell out of fashion when panel cookers became, instead of creating a box with a window that holds everything, people had the idea of how about more reflectors, and then put the pot inside a plastic bag and use the greenhouse effect to hold the heat in. That was simpler. Unfortunately, normally you're cooking one dish at a time, but they're simple enough to make that you can make more than one and cook two things at a time.
Well, great. I can't think of anything else. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Let me think. Um, no, I think I really appreciate having had a chance to ramble on about the current project and talk about some of the past things. I really appreciate it. And let me give you, I can see myself in you sort of in 1989, where I had more energy, and it's amazing the work that you're doing. You're giving us all a feeling of, wow, this is really continues to move forward. So really want to give you kudos for everything that you have been doing and are continuing to do.
Well, thanks. I tell people I'm a community organizer, and my best trait is I can get things organized. Keeping them organized, it's going to be up to the rest of the community and the rest of the world. But if I can network people, I just think of the first organizing tool is if you can talk to people over food, and what is more perfect than solar cooking to get people involved. So anyway, I'm glad I'm hoping it'll make a long-term impact. I'm hoping we can get more of a network, more directly fused together and hardwired rather than just kind of
Right.
piecemeal. So yeah, thanks for that.
Luther, I thought of one more thing.
Sure.
I took what I
Oh,
had learned in solar cooking and on my programming jobs and design of this and that, and I came up with, you can see this is some edits coming in future versions of the book,
mhm.
but I wrote this book called Flex Thinking. It goes into this some solar cooking, and the idea was every time I saw a brilliant thing happen, like where people are sitting around arguing about how are we going to solve this horrible problem, and one person raised their hand and says, hey, why don't we just, and everybody goes, oh God, that's so simple. Whenever that happened, I made notes. And so like just happened to open to this page. Your job is to design a seat control in a car, and we've all seen this now,
Yep.
to make the seat go up and down and forward and back and make the back of the seat go up and down. Most of us, if we were doing this, let's say we'd never seen this before, we'd have, oh, we'll have a row of buttons. The first button will go forward and the back button will go back, and maybe the middle buttons, some of them will go up and some will go down. And you'll argue about that forever. And then some person says, wait a second, why don't we just make a little seat? And they move the little seat and it moves the big seat. That's a perfect example. I just happened to open to.
Sure.
That's what the book is about, is how to grab the thing that's right there in front of you that you don't even notice.
And it's
And
intuitive. I mean, you
it's
reach.
available. It's available on Amazon. It's $4.99 now, which is almost the smallest amount they allow me to charge. $4.06 is the actual
Okay,
smallest I can charge. Uh, I'm everybody can publish now, which means everybody publishes, and it's all on Amazon. And you search for creative thinking, and I'm page 90. You know what I'm saying?
sure, sure.
So I think it's a very valuable book, and I'd really like to make my 10 cents on each copy or something. It's not even that. I want to get it out there.
Yeah,
And the more people buy it, the further it goes up to, it'll be page 10 pretty soon.
sure, sure.
But anyway, I recommend that. There's also a Kindle version there too, but I recommend the paperback version because it's more up to date, and they're both
Good.
the same price. So
Great.
thank you for allowing me to mention that.
I know, and you got to get on. You're going to take a much needed trip and vacation,
Yeah,
rest up, and probably unhook yourself from the web for many hours of the day or many days of the week. Right?
that's right. That's definitely.
That's great. Okay, thanks.